So, you're back for round 2, eh? Saw my guide covering strategies for new players in hard mode and triangle strategy. Maybe had more questions? What's the best way to spend war funds, for example? Or what character should I upgrade, and when? Or why won't my party take the path I want? Do I even really need to worry about what I do off the battlefield? The answer is yes. Yes, you do. Especially if you're playing on hard. In fact, I would argue that your actions off the battlefield are far more important than your strategic decision-making on the battlefield. You can have the best positioning and team composition in the world, but if you don't have the right items at the right time, or worse, your characters are just too weak to survive against the enemy, it'll all be for nothing. So today, we're going to discuss the encampment, the exploration phase, and how to manage your army. Let's begin. First, an honorable mention. Be as thorough as you can be during the exploration phase. Talk to every single NPC you can find and make sure to exhaust their dialogue. You never know what vital nugget of information they might share with you, and how it could impact the story multiple chapters down the line. Also, keep your eyes peeled for any and all little shiny items that you can see. Some of them are quite hidden, so rotate the camera and don't rush through. There have been several times I've ended exploration only to see the flash of an item just as the screen fades out. It's a bad feeling. Finally, don't forget to check doors to buildings and other areas. I missed an entire area in Hyzant because I didn't realize I could enter a building, and I'm sure I missed out on valuable items and information that might wind up biting me down the road. I left this as an honorable mention as it didn't really feel right to put what is essentially pay attention when playing the game on a list of tips, but it really is important that you do it, so just do it. Trust me, it will make your life easier. With that out of the way, on to the actual tips. Point number 1. Spend money on upgrades, not consumables. Accessories are weird and deserve their own consideration. We'll get to that. This first point ties back to our honorable mention, as your economy and triangle strategy is tight in the early game. Every spoils drop, glittering spot of gold, and earned upgrade material matters here. So, as a rule of thumb, I recommend prioritizing upgrades to your character's weapons over purchasing healing pellets and throwable magic stones at the shop. Weapon upgrades cost a fair chunk of change, given the need to purchase the raw materials you need for the upgrade, and then also pay for the upgrade itself. For example, your first upgrade requires 2 upgrade materials, the most basic of which cost 150 coins apiece, for a total of 300 coins. And then there is a 500 coin fee to finalize the process, for a grand total of 800 coins for that very first upgrade. The next upgrade requires 6 materials, or 900 coins, on top of that 500 coin fee for a total of 1400, and it just keeps getting more expensive from there. However, and this is why I recommend this, you need to remember that these are permanent upgrades. The coin you spend improving your units is an investment that will last for the entire game, adding up to massive improvements over the course of the campaign. Compare this to consumable healing pellets, for example. They also cost 150 coins to acquire and are a one-time use deal. That money is gone forever once that pellet is used. So, given the option, would you rather get a permanent boost or a one-time use bump? I think the choice is obvious. Besides, if you're doing your due diligence when exploring, you should find plenty of healing pellets and other consumables to keep you going, in conjunction with restorative magic in the early game. However, I mentioned it previously, and we should quickly touch on accessories now, because they fall into an interesting space. They are expensive, with a basic HP ring or magic ring running a sweet 1500 coin, with the price rising from there. However, much like a weapon upgrade, this is a permanent boost, provided you don't sell it for some reason, which you really shouldn't, unless you're in some sort of weird situation. Anyway, with the added benefit of being able to swap who is using the accessory at will. Functionally, this makes them a more versatile, if less powerful version of a weapon upgrade. And there's value in that. But personally, I haven't put much money into these items in the early game. I'll leave the decision up to you, of course, for what you wish to do with them, but It's something to keep in mind. Maybe they'll be useful for you. Maybe they won't. Now that we know that we should focus our money on upgrading our weaponry, what upgrades should we choose? That's up next. Point number 2, upgrade defense and special abilities before attack, with a few exceptions. I'm going to be honest here. This is a harsh lesson that I learned the hard way, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to spare you that same pain. Initially, I was choosing to upgrade my units to utilize more of a blitz strategy, aiming to rush to isolated enemies and take them out quickly to thin the enemy's numbers and maintain my own formation. However, I learned very quickly that on hard mode, the enemy forces will outpace your damage rapidly, leading to many unfortunate character deaths while trying to stand toe-to-toe with the enemy. You need to utilize positioning and follow-up attacks to the max. And you can't do that if your troops are dropping like flies because they got hit twice by 2 random swordsmen. In particular, Serenoa, Roland, and Eridor suffered here, for me, until I was able to afford some HP and defense upgrades for them. So, I suggest you focus on your party's defense before their offense. Sometimes you'll only survive a group of attacks with 5 or 10 HP, but that is damage that can be undone, unlike death. However, there are a few exceptions to this rule. Characters that can be kept far away from the battle, or who can protect themselves while dealing damage, should be considered for attack upgrades. In particular, I've had great success speccing Frederica into heavy damage due to both her AoE and single target fire spells, as well as Anna, as she can dodge fairly regularly or go invisible when things are getting a bit too hot for her. This is an addendum to the script just prior to uploading, actually, but I also just unlocked an archer who has insane damage output at great range, but who is slow and quite frail, so he's another character that I'll be choosing to build damage on over defense. Characters such as these stand to gain a lot from a glass cannon approach, so consider giving a few units a bump in their attack, but for the most part, stick to defense. But this is great! Now you know what to upgrade, and you've got a nice supply of materials thanks to our first point, so it's time to do those upgrades, right? Stop right there. Hold your horses. Not quite. Let's go to point number 3. Wait to apply upgrades and buy items until the start of the battle. It's easy to feel your supplies burning a hole in your pocket once you have an idea of what characters you like and how you want to build them. Maybe someone really overperformed in the previous chapter and you've decided they deserve some upgrades, or even a promotion if you got them to level 10. That's an amateur mistake. Remember, you always have access to the encampment before a battle, and as such can always go and buy items or apply upgrades. Use this to your advantage. Get to the battlefield and take the lay of the land. Decide if you need to bring Anna on this mission, or if you'd really be better served with another mage to hit clumped up groups of enemies. Once you've got your formation and strategy in mind, then go back to camp and apply upgrades to the characters you'll be using. You have the benefit of advanced reconnaissance, so be reactionary and methodical with your resources. Nothing feels worse than pumping upgrades into your current favorite character, only to deploy them in the next fight and have them do next to nothing. Save yourself from that disappointment. Number 4. Do your mock battles. This is a simple recommendation, but it's one that I feel some folks may need to hear. Seriously, do your mock battles, at least once. You will unlock these battles periodically as you progress through the story, and they actually can present interesting little challenges. Time attacks, battles against mixed groups of enemies, or even point capture objectives. They're fun. And more importantly, they're easier than the story battles. They aren't complete cakewalks, but they give you an opportunity to acquire extra money, materials, and experience that you can apply to the story campaign. In particular, I use them as a test bed for new units after I recruit them, so I can get a chance to see what they can do without getting beat into the dirt by quote-unquote proper story campaign missions. While I wouldn't recommend grinding them over and over and destroying the challenge of the campaign, I wouldn't ignore them either. They can give you just the right amount of a boost. Number 5. Make note of your character's personality when trying to convince them. Something I've learned very quickly when making decisions at the scales of conviction is that your party truly do have preferences based on the way they are written. There aren't objectively right or wrong answers to questions you are asked based on the overall narrative. Instead, the decisions that you make should be influenced by what you think would resonate the most with a character. For example, Eredor cares about honor and loyalty above all else, whereas Benedict values practical strategy and logical decision-making much more. At the start of the game, I wasn't sure if this would be the case, but it is clear to me now that this is something that you really need to be considering. Even if an answer makes more sense to you, or fits better in the context of the situation at hand, if it doesn't gel with the character in question, they might just reject it. So pay attention. Also, note that success and failure can be influenced by your overall convictions, meaning if you trend towards honorable choices, for example, characters that value honor will be more easily swayed, and choices that you make that are influenced by honor or have to do with honor will be more likely to succeed. So, try to keep a certain level of consistency in your portrayal of Serenoa. This is important to remember when discussing our next point as well, so just because you unlocked a dialogue option does not mean it's the right choice. This is another trap that I fell into, most notably when I was trying to convince Frederica to change her mind and follow my way of thinking during a major decision. I assumed that, because I had done my due diligence while exploring and unlocked a hidden dialogue option with her, that was the correct option to select. This was not the case. In fact, it ran directly counter to what Frederica believed in, to the point that she actually took it as proof that she was right and I was wrong, and solidified her opposition to my position. Looking back, it's clear that there were other options which I had discarded that probably would have resonated with her more, and as such, should have been up for consideration. So read carefully, and consider all your options. Don't just select something because of the enticing unlock animation. Finally, let's move on to number 7. Buy at itinerant merchants. I know. This runs slightly contrary to my earlier point about being smart with your spending. However, itinerant merchants are interesting in that they are merchants who exist on the map during the exploration phase, and as such they have a separate inventory from Lionel the merchant in your encampment. This means you can get extra upgrade materials and consumables from them that you normally wouldn't have access to. So, if you don't feel like you need to spend money on weapon upgrades for the next fight, it's worth considering stocking up at those merchants when you find them. In particular, I would consider buying out their stock of upgrade materials so that you have them on hand to upgrade characters whenever you need, wherever you need, and for whatever reason. Of course, you need to be careful not to break the bank. You might need those funds down the road. But these merchants are absolutely a resource that you should consider utilizing. So stock up, cash out, and buy a bunch of upgrades with your next influx of coin. As always, however, you will find exceptions to every rule, and exceptions that prove these rules and tips. At the end of the day, it's up to you to develop your strategy and decide how you're going to apply the lessons contained within this video. Make sure you're trying to adapt on the fly, and you'll find that you've found victory before you know it. If you enjoyed this 2-part mini-series of Triangle Strategy Guides, be sure to leave a like. While this covers the basics of the game, there is a ton to discuss with the game, and I would love to do so. If you'd like to see more guide content from me, such as more in-depth mechanics breakdowns or guides for building certain characters, please let me know. Make sure you subscribe to stay on top of all of my Triangle Strategy content and all of my other content. And if you want to help me out, consider getting a channel membership. $5 a month gets you access to exclusive emotes and badges to use on the channel, as well as some early sneak peeks at my latest content, and a shout out every Friday. It's not necessary, by any means, but Jane and I both would appreciate it. Finally, if you made it to the end of the video, the secret code is Dragon is best boy. Let me know if you know. Thanks again, everyone. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.